This podcast is brought to you by Voice and Vision, bringing help, hope, and healing to individuals, families, and communities affected by mental illness, addictions, and disabilities in southeastern Pennsylvania. Financial support for this podcast is provided by a Veterans Trust Fund grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Military and Veterans Affairs.
Welcome to Untold Valor, a podcast with a unique focus on veterans, featuring stories of courage, recovery, perseverance, and strength. Listen to hear veterans share their perspectives on what it's like to battle mental health challenges, combat addictions, and overcome other adversities unique to those who have served.
Welcome into another edition of the podcast. This is Untold Valor, where we share stories of military personnel and their experiences during and after service, as well as other folks to just share their conversations and stories about the topic around getting help, getting well, getting healthy in all walks of life as it pertains to our veterans. And, we were talking a little bit before we started rolling on this podcast about the definition of valor, and it's honor plus dignity. And I think there's this great strength and honor in asking for help as well. And so that's part of the reason we chose the name for the podcast, was to let people know that it's okay, that have that strength or courage to reach out and say, I need help. There's valor in that as well. So this week we've got a great conversation with Ryan Allman's going to be joining us. He's an operations manager at Compier in Lebanon, and so he's going to jump in and talk with us a little bit. He's got his own story, serving time in the military as well, and also just really working with mental health and wellness at Compier. So Ryan, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I really appreciate you guys having me on today, and enjoying and looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. And Reverend Ben's here once again. Reverend Ben, thanks for being here. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. Looking forward to another session.
Yeah, always good to talk with you and have you here for your side and view on things as well. So let's get into it as we usually do. Ryan, kick us off a little bit. Just tell us a little bit about you and your time in the service and what's going on with you in your walks of life.
Well, I'll try to give you guys the abridged version, if you will. If we rewind all the way back to 1998, I first decided it was going to be a great idea to serve in the Army, and my parents didn't want me to go. I was all set up to go to college at Kent State. I grew up in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio. I had a choice: aerospace technology and learn to fly airplanes, or join the Army.
Wow.
I just saw a lot of my friends were going to school, and I wasn't that good of a student. I wrestled, I played the drums, and I did okay at both. And I was just like, there's got to be something more to this.
Okay.
And so, I went through and I somehow convinced my parents to sign me up and say, hey, get this physical, you could join the military. And I didn't leave until it was 2 days before my 18th birthday. I shipped off to basic training, good old Fort Knox, Kentucky. I remember my 18th birthday, I was able to sneak away a piece of cake, celebrated in my mind while, I don't remember what it tasted like. I don't remember what it was, chocolate or vanilla. It was just hurry up, grab it, eat it. And, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
One of those, those memories I remember, like, all right, we're going to celebrate.
So how long did you spend in the service?
So I retired in 2020. So I spent 21 and a half years.
Well, I guess you made a good decision. You obviously stayed there.
It was. I look back. It was a great decision, because I was privileged to serve, and I served alongside some amazing human beings, and learned a lot. It was supposed to be a 3-year contract. Something like $35,000 that I could use towards college after those 3 years, and I was having such a good time in Texas as my first assignment. And in that time, people were either coming from Korea or going to Korea. And I was like, well, I really don't want to go to Korea. And so I was able to re-enlist. I was able to choose to go to Europe and be stationed in Germany. And that's where I ended up going. And I spent better part of 8 years assigned to Germany, but with deployments and after, post 9/11, I learned a little bit of German and was immersed in some of the culture. But a lot of it was coming and going.
How was your overall experience in the military? Did you find it to be, clearly you must have found it to be positive. You stayed in for 20 plus years, but what was your kind of takeaway from that?
In general, it was a amazing experience for me, a positive impact on me. And I can look back and it's just like, wow. But I'm also realist. I could look back, and there were some tough times being separated from home. I just turned 18. It was my first time away from home. We had some family struggles growing up. My parents somehow managed to stay together. My brother is involved with drugs early on, and I was separated. I didn't know anything that was going on at 18 years old, and here I was in this new world called the military. So that was hard at the beginning, and then hey, we're gonna move to Texas, or I'm gonna move to Texas, and I'm better part of 20 hours away from friends and family in Ohio, and all my friends are going to college at that time, and here I am learning this adult life, and that's where I was had my first, other than drill sergeants, I had leadership, and I had people that were assigned to be my leader that cared about me.
Yeah.
And that made an impact on me because, I had I was really privileged. I had some really great leaders. And I also did a lot of push-ups because I also made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, that's good for that, for sure.
There's some character building.
That's
here.
right. Well, I noticed that obviously on your bio here that you went into, really serving and volunteering with various military and veteran organizations afterwards. You got a psychology degree from PSU. And so when you got out, did it kind of, what informed your career move into this area? Was it because you wanted to work with other veterans? Was it things that you had saw? Just in general, what kind of pushed you that direction?
The choice to leave the military, it wasn't easy. My wife and I, we went through a challenging period in our marriage towards the end of my career, and we were able to work through it. And we could talk more about that. And it was like, all right, hey, if we leave the military, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? Mm-hmm. And then we're like, we came up with this great idea. We're going to start this business. And we ran with it. And we were able to transition to Texas for my last assignment. So I started my career and ended my career in Texas. And we came up with this idea, like I said, to start this business right before I actually signed out of the military. I was able to spend a good couple of months working on me, from physical therapy to mental health and relationships. And, it was a really cool experience. And I also found out more about volunteering. Especially my last year in the military, I had a lot of time to just explore the military, the community outside the military, and I really fell in love with meeting all these people outside of the military. And it really informed when it came time to leave the military. I was already volunteering with a couple different organizations. So when I showed up in Pennsylvania, my wife is from here. I am not. I still mispronounce cities around the area here. Which is really fun. So I'm a transplant here to outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania. You said Lebanon. I would have got yelled at if I said Lebanon. It's Lebanon.
Okay.
Just like Lancaster and Lancaster. Anyways, I've learned these things, and but I've learned these things through meeting other people and this great thing called volunteering.
Yeah.
And I actually showed up to Compeer as a volunteer. I got a flyer at my local VA here, and one of the previous directors was actually working at the VA. I said, "Here, check this place out." Handed me a little trifle. I was like, "Okay, this is great. I'll add this to my my things to think about." And then I at that time I kind of went by the rules of three. If I see something about 3 times, let me look into it. And I had an email that showed up, and I saw something on social media about this Compeer thing. And at that time, I was just I joke. I left the military and I became this serial volunteer. And now I don't joke anymore. I say, hey, I became a professional volunteer once I left the military.
Nice.
And I learned about this thing called Compeer Corps, and I was hooked. I have a friend through Compeer now. We text more than we talk, and we meet in person. For other reasons, he doesn't really care to leave where he lives, but we work through these things. But it was through volunteering. I met him through volunteering. I learned about Compeer.
And is that kind of the part of the buddy program you're talking about?
So our Compeer Corps program, it's really about our Compeer Corps program is just like the traditional model of Compeer of matching, caring adult with somebody in need.
Right.
But the Corps program takes on a veteran to veteran help. So I was paired with another veteran who has some challenges, and just a friend.
And that's a big chunk of what we talk about often here on the podcast, Ryan, is reaching out, helping others, whether you're, got a psychology degree or not, right? You have the experience of being a fellow veteran and reaching out to other veterans, but also for those that are struggling, trying to figure out how to get some help themselves, whether it's they're not sure where to turn or they're just not comfortable with asking for the help. And so in your role now, and even through your role as in the military, often that is the struggle for many of our military personnel is feeling okay asking for help.
100%. And that's, I mean, going back to your question, was that's what informed my decision. I was like, well, this business didn't work out.
Right.
Let me go back to school. Let me get a degree. And what am I going to get a degree in? It took me 20 years to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, and I'm still learning. But it was one of those things. Hey, psychology, I could take this. I could be a counselor. I have two other friends, close friends that I've served with who are clinicians, master level clinicians, and working in the veteran military affiliate community. And I was like, hey, I want to do this too. I want to be help. And through volunteering, I also see the need for help. And then through the process of psychology degree, I was like, I really don't want to be a clinician. What else could I do?
More like in the field, correct?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And again, through volunteering and I actually, through my undergrad, I actually was I was an intern in our Compeer office. And I was able to see more of the ins and outs of what we do and understand a little bit more about community mental health, and then try to find my place within community mental health in our little small area of Lebanon, but also in our kind of our greater capital region, the Harrisburg, York, Carlisle, trying to figure out, hey, what is this area? Who could use some, it's not the handout, but the hand up, and what's my role in that? And how could I be, a voice for those who don't have it? And how could I, kind of get some change going? Because, a lot of people have their different experiences with the VA, with getting help. And, I could leverage my personal experiences and then now my professional experiences to better inform or more inform
Gotcha.
other people. And that's really, I guess, my goal now post military is just kind of spreading the good word and letting people know that, hey, we could do this and we could do this together.
From my experience, there were some things in the military that did scar me, and there was a bit of insanity. What I have found, though, the insanity increased my humanity, which led me, because my pain was a motivator to get help and to also be able to help other veterans as well and other people in general.
Yeah, I can definitely see where, that's going to be the case for many folks. And so it's always good to talk with individuals like, yourself, Ben, and Ryan as well, who make that transition to helping others. What's some of the bigger struggles that you see, Ryan, in your role as an operations manager at Compeer in helping, veterans, or maybe some of the bigger challenges that they're struggling with, like kind of the top tier ones that others listening today might feel like, yeah, that's me. I'm in that group. How do I get help for that?
I mean, riffing off of what Reverend Ben just said, I mean, humanity and other people knowing that there's other good humans out there that are willing to help. And whether those humans are, within the VA or another nonprofit organization, connecting those folks. And, I see a lot of guys and gals and family members that, hey, I need help putting up a fence because my husband's back is broke from all the years in service. Who could do that for me? And we actually, outside of Compeer, we were able to start a coalition of member and have members that that they're also able to volunteer through their organization. And hey, I know somebody who does fences, and we could have essentially a work day instead of having a meeting. We could do volunteer work, and we could help put this fence up. Or
that's awesome.
Veterans who have died, and their family member has extra wheelchairs and canes and other devices. Through our coalition, we could either put them in storage, or we could deliver them to another veteran in need. And then, I mean, it echoes in Compeer Corps. We sit and we have our monthly breakfast. And we just sit and chat. You get a bunch of veterans around a meal, and we talk about the old times, we talk about the new times. But in those conversations, it's like, hey, I'm having car trouble. I don't have the money for this. I really wish Compeer had the money to help people with this issues. But when we're sitting there over a meal, we're able to say, well, hey, I could help you with that, or I know somebody who could help you with that. And we're able to connect resources at a breakfast, and get somebody's car fixed, get somebody's plumbing repaired, get somebody, in the wintertime, heating oil's big, that hand up of, hey, we could help you out this month, but just friend to friend, and able to do it that way. And just showing, again, that humanity in life and, people of character that care about veterans.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We had a guest on one of the episodes earlier this season, and they were talking about the transition, from military to civilian life and some of the culture shock and little things like that can go a long way to smoothing some of that over as well, right? Just sitting around having that camaraderie and just talking about life, right? Murphy's Law, life happens. And so, and then all of a sudden one person says, hey, I can help with that, and so on and so forth. It just, it's a great feeling to kind of get that snowball effect rolling as well.
Yeah, there's definitely power in that, and for people to know that. I mean, transitions are natural in life. We all go through them. You know,
Right.
we've all left home. Leaving the military again is another transition. I don't want to minimize it, but when you go through a transition and know that there's people or a group of people or organizations that have your back
Hmm.
to get you through some of these tough sticking points. And once you realize you have that backing, this transition thing isn't as difficult as it may have seemed.
Yeah, that's a great point. So we talk a lot on the show about sharing resources, sharing information. Obviously, what you do is right there is in that working at Compeer and Compeer Core. So, any kind of messages that you'd like to share from just your daily experiences that you see that veterans struggle with, or a personal message even that you'd kind of want to share?
Like I said earlier, I struggled towards the end of my career. Didn't even know I was struggling with mental health. Hey, am I doing okay? Hey, can I be better?
Hmm.
And that thought going through my mind, and working the hours that I did, finally it came to the point where it's like, I need to ask somebody else. I need to figure this out. How do I sleep better? How do I make it through the day without getting angry? I need to talk to somebody.
Mm.
So I talked to a couple of close friends and said, hey, Ryan, or at that time they used my rank. It was, yeah, you need to go talk to somebody, or it would be good if you did. And so that opened up the door for me. It allowed me, yeah, let me make the time. Let me go down the road and talk to people. And I did. And it was really it was eye opening. It was mind opening. But what that first conversation did, it allowed me, to make that decision to retire and say, hey, I want to spend some time with my wife and kids and watch them grow up versus staying in the military. And that was a personal choice, and that was hard because I loved doing what I was doing. But that opened up the mental health world to me of, all right, hey, this is okay to ask for some help and to get some direction, and get a disinterested third person to help you through these things. And it did, and saved my marriage, allowed me to retire, and allowed me, the continuum of care once I left the service. It allowed me to have a provider here in Pennsylvania through the VA, and then if I wasn't comfortable, I knew other resources were there that that weren't affiliated with the VA that I could go talk to as well. So just that, from that conversation of people saying, yeah, hey, talk to somebody else on this. There's pros, like that stigma that we talk about with mental health was broken, the last couple of years that I was in the military. I'm really happy for that. And then to this day, I continue to have these conversations, throughout the different organizations that I volunteer with, like, hey, go over here, talk to this person, whether it's mental health, whether it's substance abuse. Like I've been very fortunate to meet people within this space that have the humanity, that care about other veterans and family members too. And all these organizations are just willing to help veterans and their family members, and it just comes really by that courage to, hey, ask for, if it's not asking for help, however we want to frame that word help, whether it's assistance or, hey, I got a question, who knows the answer. And part of me finding that was when I left, I was like, all right, here's my tribe is the military. Where do I find my tribe once I leave the military?
Hmm.
And that's, again, within my community. But I asked those questions, and I had a good sounding board of people and organizations to ask.
I like what he just said, how we have to identify with not only when we get out the military, we seek our own, but there's also an element of people who reject us in a certain way. Some of them because maybe they envy the fact they didn't go in the military. Some of them because of, I don't know what it is, but there's some kind of a separation also between veterans and civilians when we come home. Even I'm talking about even years afterwards. I know people today that they're not too happy about veterans, it's not, I don't know, but it's a fact.
It is a fact. There has and will continue to be that divide, that military civilian divide. Some of it positive, some of it negative, some of it indifferent. We've seen it from our Vietnam era veterans, and we do see it today. With the culture, how politically divided we are, and sadly, our veterans get drug into it as well. But the thing about our veterans and our military is, like, we don't ask. hey, we want to go fight. We wrote that check, said, hey, we're going to go do this, whatever you ask of me. And that's what we go do. And some people could see past that and understand it. And other people, unfortunately, they hey, you're in the military, we don't support you. My personal, experience have been more positive. I've met more people that, that, hey, thank you for your service, appreciate your service, than the folks that I haven't. But the fact remains, there are people that don't, and that maybe don't want to help, within their organizations. Like, hey, they're a veteran. There's all these resources out for them. Me and this organization, we don't have anything for you right now.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. So I think for the message that we try to share here on the podcast, though, is for veterans out there who do want help. And I like the way you put it, Ryan. You had to ask yourself some questions, right? You had to, as you were getting ready to leave and make that retirement decision, you really had to, turn the lens inward and say, okay, I've got some questions for myself. I need a little help on some things to save your marriage and so on and so forth. And that's often the hardest step and the first step for many veterans, whatever the problem may be, whether it's addiction, whether it's PTSD, or whatever the case might be, big problems or small problems, you got to look inwards, and then you also have to reach out for some help. So I thank you so much for your time. Anything else before we go that we might have missed that you'd like to share?
No, I appreciate this time, this opportunity to share a little bit of my story, and hopefully, somebody else hears this and says, hey, this guy could do it. I could do this too. And I can make this world work for me.
Absolutely. Reverend Ben, thank you so much for being here. As always, any questions or comments before we depart this week?
I just want to say thank you, Ryan, for your input. Veterans are in need of all these resources and information. So I'm glad that we have a platform to provide it. And I look forward to our future podcast. Thank you very much, Mark.
Absolutely. And we'll have those resources and information at the end of the podcast. So stick around for that. Don't forget to subscribe to the show so you can catch future episodes as well as check out past episodes. And we'll have Ryan's information up if you're in the Lebanon area. Let me say that better. Is that better?
It is perfect.
There we go. I got family in Carlisle, so they're probably going to yell at me anyway when they hear this. So, but it's all good. But we'll have those resources and information up at the end of the show. So again, check those out and reach out to folks and get yourself some help if you need some, and continue to check out and support Untold Valor. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to Untold Valor by Voice and Vision. We hope you found the information and resources discussed today helpful. As always, thank you for listening and for your support. Remember to stay connected with us through our various social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Don't forget to visit the website, voiceandvisioninc.org. That's voiceandvisioninc.org, where you can sign up for our blog and find free resources and information on upcoming events, webinars, workshops, and get support. You can also access our free help and hope guide for individuals and families struggling with substance use and addiction. If someone you know is struggling, please reach out for help, because you and your life matter. Remember, the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available to you at any time by dialing 988. We are all ambassadors of hope and recovery, and if you want to share your story, please contact us. Compeer Corps is also looking for veteran mentor volunteers and veteran participants. To find out more information about Compeer Corps, please call 610-541-0790. That's 610-541-0790. You can find all the links and contact information for the resources mentioned on today's episode by checking the description and the show notes section of your app. Thank you again for tuning in and for your support. Until next time, this has been Untold Valor.